what does China have in mind when it comes to aircraft carriers? One is not enough. China already having the second one.
Well, I think first we have a large area of territorial waters and also waters under Chinese jurisdiction, almost 3 million square kilometers, and also we have 18,000 kilometers coastline. So, and also we have 1.3 billion. And the other factor, we can see that all the 5 permanent members of the United Nations Security Council and also India all have aircraft carriers. So I think it is natural and normal for China to acquire aircraft carriers, not only one, but all, I think at least 3.
At least 3. Already a quota over there. In fact, the less countries these days are keeping aircraft carriers in service. If we took a look at this map, US has the most for sure, and all of the others, for example, Russia, China, the UK, France, Italy, if you have the map on the screen, India, Thailand have only 1 in service now. Ms. Panova, we noticed that Russia has in fact shrink the number of the aircraft carriers compared to before. What were the thoughts behind this?
Well, Russia is obviously trying to remain naval and both sea and land power, but I think it doesn't have as many, let's say, threats or geostrategic tasks to perform in order to have more at the moment. So it's kind of a balancing between different types of the military taken their huge strategic task and that it has all over their country. But for China, I believe I would totally agree with my colleague that for China it is just normal to have to reposition itself in Asia Pacific and to have more aircraft carriers, and it doesn't mean any threat. It might mean threat in terms of, or let's say not threat, challenge for the US dominance, because they've been used for so long, being the sole power, having absolute, almost next to absolute control over their world ocean, all over their, be it Pacific, be it Atlantic, be it elsewhere. But of course, their strategic perspective, or the long-term perspective of other countries, including China as its, let's say, main economic rival at the moment, right? Yeah. Having more strategic capabilities could be challenging. It is challenging.
Professor,
so I think it could be seen from this point of view, but it is all but natural to have those for a big country like China, or for a country like Russia, for any other sea powers.
Since Professor Manova talking about the United States, maybe we can take a look at the United States. U.S. is keeping, at this point, 10 aircraft carriers in service. All of them are nuclear powered. For example, Nimitz class vessels. Some of them are the USS Nimitz, the oldest aircraft and the lead ship of the class, and also USS Dwight Eisenhower, the USS Carl Vinson, we're getting very familiar with that name, and the USS Theodore Roosevelt. Mr. Ye, the reason why people are so interested in aircraft carriers is it always has something to do with the ambition of one country's naval service.
Yeah, of course.
And now you look at the United States, 10, China on its way of building more. You think about the South China Sea and the future naval competitions in the world. Does it ring a bell to you?
In a matter of fact, actually, the American Navy is the global navy. It's to dominate the whole the international open water, and even some other countries' territorial water. Chinese Navy is far behind of such kind of the global navy. But still, it's a kind of the part of this military power surrounding the China's areas. So I don't think there's a competition between China and the US, because China definitely has no ambition to build the big navy as American to compete for the global supremacy, maritime supremacy. It's far away. So only problem is that why if Americans want to deny the Chinese Navy presence in the Chinese territory water, all the some open waters close to the Chinese coast, that will be another problem. So it's not still a regional issue.
A regional issue. Talking about this, we have noticed, Senior Captain Zhang, that Carl Vinson, one of the U.S. aircraft carriers, has been leaving Guam, coming to this part of the world, staying in the South China Sea, which is quite a sensitive area to say the least. Once China has this aircraft carrier, some even believe by the end of this year, what does it mean for China and the United States?
Well, it is true that there is much difference between China and the United States in terms of the number of aircraft carriers and also the displacement of the aircraft carriers. We know that the U.S. Aircraft carriers displacement is about 100,000 tons, while China's aircraft carrier is only about 60,000 tons. So and also the aircraft carrier based on the aircraft based on the carrier, the number is much smaller than the United States.
Yes. And is China's ones all nuclear powered?
No, currently only I think only 2 countries in the world have nuclear powered aircraft carriers. One is the United States, the other is the French Navy. So I think, just as I said, that at least we should have 3 aircraft carriers, because we know that according to the military technology, we know that we have 1 aircraft is on duty, the other is in training period, and the third is in maintenance.
I see. But will that create more possibility of conflict? I mean, Senior Captain Zhang, you and Mr. Yan know this better than anyone else. At this point, China and the United States have huge difference in interpreting what is international water. 12 cubic meters, kilometers, and that is what the US believe. And yet international water is everywhere. And while China talking about 12 cubic meters, and then also 24, and then the special economic development zone, EEZ, and then the international water. So with interpretation so different, when we have more relatively balanced naval power, including aircraft carriers, does it mean more chance of conflict or more chance of peace?
I think if China doesn't have such kind of the capacity, I mean the aircraft carrier, there's still a lot of the competition, but we know the consequence, because in that case, if American challenge the Chinese stance, China had to make a compromise, because you can't make anything different. So this means we can't agree to disagree, but you need to have the enough tools to stand for your position.
I see. Ms. Panova, what do you make of this situation, and also the possibility, particularly among parties, to exchange technologies, or at least doing some kinds of cooperation for future development of aircraft carrier technologies, and for the purpose of peace, particularly? Professor Panova.
Would you mean exchange of technologies between China and Russia on
For
this,
example, in this
front,
case.
Between whom?
Yes, for example, in this case, Russia, China.
Well, I think, yeah. Well, I think we have a gradual and quite successfully developing cooperation, including in military area between our 2 countries, be it military equipment supplies, joint productions, or be it joint military exercises. So I think we're quite successful in this regard. I think it is good that the country should be very calmly and safely possessing enough power to make sure it feels calm, and that the other country is not prone to attack it. So I think it is necessary for China to have enough military capabilities, so some challenger that might be striving for global power, it doesn't feel it even can attack or even can dictate and thus cause a conflict. So I think First of all, yes, there is a huge potential for further improving and developing Russia-China cooperation in all areas, including military one.
Yeah.
And yes, there should be an insurance for China in order to for other competitors, if they arise, not to be willing to take any adversarial stance.
Yes, Senior Captain Zhang, 10 seconds for you.
Well,
possible?
Yes, I think the Chinese Navy lags far behind the U.S. Navy. So we should have more warships, including aircraft carriers. But I don't think there will be an arms race between China and the United States.
We hope not. Mr. Ye, your final words here as well.
Actually, in my understanding, that the stronger Chinese Navy will make the regional even stable than only the American military presence in these areas.